Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. So let's just get adjusted here. We are going to wait a few minutes. So if you're just joining now, thank you so much for joining on today's live stream. So we'll start in about 2 minutes. We've been doing these live streams for a few weeks. Hopefully you guys have all tuned in to at least one. And if this is your first live stream, I hope that you enjoy it. So in today's live stream, we are going to be talking about comparatives and superlatives. And next week, we'll be talking about conditionals, which is an intermediate grammar point. So yeah, I see some people are joining our chat. Thank you guys. From YouTube, Murad, hi, hello, thank you so much for coming. Pedro, hi, lovely teacher. Well, hello, lovely student. Thank you so much for joining today. Oh, Ricardo, hello, one of our longtime viewers. Hello, Ricardo. Thank you so much for joining on the live stream today. And a viewer from Facebook, Geltson. Hi, hello. Thank you so much to you as well for joining us on today's live stream. And another viewer, Zechariah. If I say your name wrong, I apologize. Thank you so much for joining on the live stream today. Veronica, thank you. Hi. Good to see you. Oh, and we have some more showing up. Cho, hello. Hi. Thank you so much for coming to the live stream. Sahib, thank you. All right. It looks like we have quite a few people joining. So happy to see you guys. Hello, 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 hello. So let's go ahead and begin. So today, we will be talking about comparatives and superlatives. So today, I am going to give a PPT lesson. And while I am talking, you can post questions or comments. And after the lesson, I will go through and see your comments, answer your questions. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So let me share my screen with you guys. So just take a second. Okay, hopefully you guys can all see my screen. All right, so let's go ahead and begin today's lesson. So here we see my PPT is up. So please follow along, and I hope that you learned something useful today. Okay, guys, today we are going to learn about comparative and superlative adjectives. These are two kinds of adjectives we can use to compare in English. Some of these things, maybe it sounds familiar to you, but hopefully today I can give you some tips and tricks for how to use these words and how to know how to use them correctly. All right, let's get started. So first today, we are going to talk about comparative adjectives. So here in the word comparative, this comes from the word compare. Do any of you know, well, what does it mean to compare? If I have two things, what does it mean if I am comparing them? To compare is to talk about what is the same or different between two or more things. So first today, we're going to look at comparative adjectives. So comparative adjectives. There are actually two ways we can use comparative adjectives. The first is than, and so we'd have our adjective here. And the second way is more than, more adjective than. So, how do we know which to use? For example, if I wanted to use the adjective short, would I say shorter than or more short than? I would say shorter than, right? What if I had a word like expensive? Would I say expensiver than or more expensive than? I would say more expensive than. That may sound right to you, but do you know why? There is a simple trick to help you remember which one to use. And that has to do with how many syllables are in a word. So to use than, our adjective should have one or two syllables. More adjective than, our adjectives have three or more syllables. So what's a syllable? A syllable is how many vowel sounds we hear in a word. And if you guys know a vowel, these are certain letters in English: A, E, I, O, and U. So, for example, let's say I have a word like banana. How many vowels do I hear in that word? Banana. 3. What if I go back to the word expensive? How many vowels do I hear? Expensive. Also 3. What about that adjective, short? Well, there I only hear O, short. This can be a little confusing though, so we can use the clap test. When you clap along as you say a word, it's much easier to hear how many syllables there are, which we'll get some practice with in just a moment. So, going back to comparative adjectives, we use than for adjectives with one or two syllables, and more adjective than for adjectives with three or more syllables. A quick note also. So, we also use more than for adjectives that end in ed, ing, ful, and less, even if they only have one or two syllables. For example, let's say I have the adjective tired. Tired. 2 syllables, right? I hear the I and the E. Tired. But I wouldn't say tireder than, I would say more tired than, because that adjective ends in ed. And it would be the same for adjectives ending in ing, like boring. Math class is more boring than English class. FUL, I think English is more useful than pottery. Or LESS. She is not as helpless, or she is less helpless than her friend. Something like this. So let's take a look at some adjectives and see if we can sort them. Would we use than or more adjective than? So we'll go through. So first we have big. Big, right? We just hear that I. Big, which we can also do the clap test with. So how many syllables? Big. 1. So we would use bigger than. Okay, next one we have exciting. Exciting. So there we hear 3. Exciting. Exciting. So we would say more exciting than. Okay, we'll go through these next ones a little quickly. Next, we have salty. Salty has 2 syllables, so we'd say saltier than. Tasty, also 2 syllables. Tastier than. All right, our next word we have is comfortable or comfortable. So 3 or 4 syllables, depending on how you say it. So we'd say more comfortable than. Next, we have smart. Can you hear how many syllables? Smart. Smart. 1. So we would say smarter than. Next, we have the word helpful. Ooh, this one's a little tricky. Helpful. Helpful. 2 syllables, right? But would I say helpfuler than? No. Helpful is an adjective that ends in FUL, so I would say more helpful than. Next, we have quiet. 2 syllables. Quieter than. Friendly. 2 syllables. Friendlier than. Our next word, interesting. 4 syllables. More interesting than. Okay, next one, tired. 2 syllables, right? But it ends in ED, so I would say more tired than. And our last one, healthy. 2, so healthier than. So this is an easy way to figure out, do I use than or more than? We need to figure out how many syllables are in these adjectives. There are some exceptions to this rule that don't really follow this 1 or 2 or 3 or more syllables rule. The first word is good. So if I'm comparing 2 things, would I say gooder than or more good than? No, I would say better than. I think that pizza is better than pasta. How about bad? Would I say badder than or more bad than? No, I would say worse than. There are 2 more words that are common exceptions, and the first one is the word fun. So, fun, 1 syllable. But we don't say funner than in English. We say more fun than. This is because when fun became an English word, it was first only a noun. Over time, it became an adjective. So because of that, we still use it differently than other adjectives and say more fun than. Famous is similar. Famous. 2 syllables. But do we say famouser than? Here, we would say more famous than as well for a similar reason. So be careful about these exceptions. So let's go ahead and compare some things. Let's see if we can come up with some sentences to compare 2 things. So here we have winter and summer. So if I want to compare, I can think of some words to describe winter, like cold. Summer, of course, is hot. I might say summer is fun. So if I use this in a sentence, I could say winter is colder than summer. I could say summer is hotter than winter. Or with our word fun, which remember is an exception, so I don't say funner than, I say more fun than. Summer is more fun than winter. How would you compare these 2? Let's look at a couple more. Here we have a delicious fried chicken and a delicious apple. So some words we could use to describe them. An apple, of course, sweet. An apple is very healthy. The fried chicken, I could use words like crispy, oily, tasty, right? A lot of words that end in Y to describe taste. So if I wanted to compare these using comparative adjectives, I could say the apple is healthier than the chicken. Or I could say something like the chicken is oilier oilier than the apple. We can also do less than. So it doesn't have to be more, let's say, healthier. It could be less healthy as well, right? So we can do more or less when we compare. So if we had a word like expensive, I could say something like apples are less expensive than chicken. We don't have to always use more. Okay, let's do one more example. Here we have math class and art class. So what do you think? If I put the words up here like fun, interesting, how about a word like creative, difficult? What do you think? Which one is more difficult? So difficult, 3 syllables, we use more difficult than. So it might be your opinion. Maybe you think math class is more difficult than art class. Or maybe art is not easy for you and you think art class is more difficult than math or less difficult than math. So the last thing we will look at for comparatives is questions. Often when we ask questions to compare things, we use which. For example, which is more enjoyable, reading or watching movies? Which is better, Japanese food or Chinese food? So here we see the basic structure is which is and our adjective, right? Our comparative adjective, better, more enjoyable, more expensive, more fun, bigger, stronger, taller. And then our 2 options, blank or blank. So which is better, watching a video or having a live lesson? What do you think? So why don't you go ahead and practice using this question structure in the chat? You can ask me for my opinion about different things. Try to do that using some comparative adjectives. Okay, guys, next we're going to talk about superlative adjectives. So what does that word mean, superlative? This means the most, the highest amount of something. And instead of using than and more than, we use the, ist, and the most. And again, here's where we'd put our adjectives. So just like with comparative adjectives, we use the same rule to figure out which one to use. We use the ist with adjectives that have 1 to 2 syllables, and the most with adjectives that have 3 or more syllables or have these endings, ed, ing, ful, or less. So let's see if we can match. So first we have tall, 1 syllable, so the tallest. Boring, 2 syllables. Would I say the boringest? Ends in ing, the most boring. Creamy, 2 syllables, the creamiest. Greasy, 2 syllables, same, the greasiest. Fried chicken is the greasiest fast food. Convenient, 3 syllables, so I'd say the most convenient. I think having a car is the most convenient way to get around. New, 1 syllable, the newest. Cheerful, 2 syllables, but ends in ful, the most cheerful. Loud, 1 syllable, the loudest. Busy, 2 syllables, the busiest. Here we have that word again, interesting, 4 syllables, the most interesting. I think doing live streams is the most interesting because I love to talk to you guys and see your questions. Excited, 3 syllables, and it ends in ed, the most excited. And finally, messy, 2, the messiest. So if you are ever confused about which to use, remember the same rule. We use the same rule here as we do with comparatives. How many syllables do those adjectives have? And we have the same exceptions. So remember, we don't say gooder than, we say better than. And likewise, we don't say the goodest or the most good, we say the best. With bad, just like we would say worse than, we don't say the baddest or the most bad, we say the worst. And our two other words, fun, remember, we don't say funner than, we say more fun than. And likewise, we don't say the funnest, we say the most fun. And we don't say the famousest, but the most famous. So remember, these 4 words are really common exceptions to this rule. All right, let's practice using some superlatives. So here we have a lion, a zebra, and an elephant. So if I want to use a superlative, we're talking about the most something. So what superlative? We'll start easy. Well, what superlative could I give to the elephant? I could say something like, oh, where did my mouse go? There it is. I could say something like the elephant is the biggest, right? I could say the lion is the smallest in this picture. Or what if I wanted to see which one is the most terrifying, the most scary animal? Well, I would say the lion is the most terrifying, the most scary. I would not want to run into a lion, and I don't think you would either. For the zebra, maybe we could say it's the shyest, right? Maybe not. We might see elephants being social, right? Zebras, maybe they just run away. They're the shyest. All right, next we have 3 people. So we'll start with some easy superlatives. On the right here, we could say he is the tallest. And of course, we could also talk about him right here, the shortest, or from the looks of it, the oldest. And how about our person in the middle? What superlative could we use for this person? Well, I think it looks like he is ready for summer. So I would say maybe his clothes are the most summery. The most summery clothes, right? He's got shorts and flip-flops. Looks like he's ready for summer. So when we use superlatives, we're talking about the highest, the most. When we are asking questions with superlatives, we often use what. For example, what is the most exciting action movie? Or what is the spiciest food you have eaten? But don't forget, we can use all other WH questions as well. Who is the friendliest person you have met? Who is the most interesting person you've met? When is the best time for me to see you? We can use, maybe that's not the best example, but we can use the other WHs as well. So just like I hope you did for comparatives, go ahead and try to write a superlative question. What is the, and here if we use what is the, and then our superlative adjective, I'm just going to put SA, and then what it is. The most exciting action movie, spiciest food you have eaten. Like this. Okay, so try to ask me some questions. All right, guys, the last thing we're going to do before I take your questions is see if we can figure out what word do we use. How do we know when to use a comparative or superlative? So let's go ahead and go through and see if we can figure it out. Okay, number 1, Nirmala is than James. Okay, so number one, are we comparing two things? Or are we talking about the most of something? Well, in number one, we're comparing two people. And another clue is the word than. So here I would say Nirmala is older than James. We are comparing, so we use than. Okay, next one. Mount Kinabalu is the mountain in Southeast Asia. Okay, and number two, am I comparing two things or talking about the most of something? And number two, I am not comparing. I'm only talking about this mountain. So I would use a superlative. It is the highest. Notice we don't use than. That's also a clue, so you know which one to use. It is the highest mountain in Southeast Asia. Number three, she is the biology teacher we have. Okay, so am I comparing? Do we see than in there? We do not, but we do see the, which means we're about to use a superlative. And good, do we say goodest? She is the best biology teacher we have. Number four, it is today than yesterday. Okay, so are we comparing? Talking about the most of something? Again, we see this word than, which is a clear giveaway that we are comparing. So we would say it is cooler today than yesterday. So we are comparing today's weather to yesterday's weather. Okay, number five, a carpet is expensive than a rug. So here we see than, and we're comparing a carpet and a rug. A carpet is more expensive than a rug, right? Expensive, 3 syllables, so more expensive. Number six, they are the students in this school. Okay, so we're talking about in the whole school, they are something, the highest, the most, the cleverest. Okay, almost finished, guys. Is Susan than her sister? So hopefully you can see by now how it's set up. We're comparing Susan and her sister, and we see that word than. Is Susan, would I say popularer or more popular than? More popular than, right? Popular, 3 syllables, more popular than. Number 8, he is the person I know. We're using lazy. We're not comparing, so we want to use a superlative. Lazy, 2 syllables. He is the laziest person I know. Angel Falls is the waterfall in the world. So just like we saw in the school, in the world, we are talking about a superlative. And here, high would become highest, the highest waterfall in the world. And last one, before we take some questions, this cheesecake is delicious than the chocolate cake. So could be your opinion, more delicious or less delicious than the chocolate cake. So remember the syllable rule that helps you choose. Is it than or more than? Is it the ist or the most something? Remember, syllables are the way that we can figure it out. And when you're looking at sentences, should I use a comparative? Should I use a superlative? Words like than and the really give away which one to use. Okay, guys, let's test it out. Okay, so that's the lesson for today. I see we have here Justina. Hello, teacher. Nice seeing you again. Nice seeing you too. Thank you so much for your comment. Thank you for your time. It's very late, or should I say early? Yes, depends where you are, right? It's the afternoon here, but I know depending on where you're watching, maybe it's very late or very early. Where am I from? What do you think? I am from America, and I am actually from New York, but I have lived in many other states. How about you? Where are you from? Maybe you can let me know in a comment. Hello, nice to meet you from Tunisia. Well, very nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for tuning in on today's lesson. I have doubt about friendly. I'm not sure what you mean by that question. Do you mean how to use friendly in like comparatives or superlatives? Is that about the lesson? Friendly, if this is what you're asking. If not, you can leave another comment to maybe try to ask again. Friendly, we have 2 syllables, so we would say friendlier than or the friendliest if we're using it in that way. Danny is as fluent in English as you. Yes, it is true. And actually, what you brought up there, as is another way we can compare. Maybe we'll talk about that in a future lesson. As, adjective as, means the same. As fluent as, the same. If I met you and you are my same height, you are as tall as me. Same. Yeah, good. Another great way to compare. Very well, the review of the comparatives. More than, what about less than? So thank you very much, Pedro, for your question. So less than, all of the same rules apply. We're just changing one word, right? So the syllable rule, all of that is still exactly the same. We're just changing the word and the meaning of the sentence, right? So let's say I am using the word expensive. Easy word, easy adjective to think of. So I could say, for example, the house is more expensive than the car. If I want to use less expensive, if I have car and house is more expensive, the car is less expensive. So if I want to use less, the car is less expensive than the house. So we use less than in the same way. So here, please give us some homework so you could be practically involved. I think that is a wonderful idea. And I think that's something we will try to do on future live streams is maybe post a worksheet that you guys can download. So as you follow along, you can fill it in and have a real lesson and have some practice for after. Hello. Nice way of teaching. Thank you very much. In superlatives, is the always necessary? Yes. So for example, let's say I'll give you 2 examples. So when we have superlatives, we say the ist or the most. So let's use a 1 or 2 syllable word. So in the lesson, we talked about, I did an example about the biggest. So I could not say the elephant is biggest. We must use the elephant is the biggest. Or with a 3 or more syllable word, let's say comfortable, or how about, comfortable. I could say, I think going to cafes are the most comfortable place to study. We do have to use the, yes. Great job with good explanation. Thank you, Mohammed. Who is the cleverest of the meeting? Oh, magic mirror, like mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? It sounds better. The most clever. So yes, and I will say we do say the cleverest. The most clever would also be accepted. So one thing with these is if you're talking to a native English speaker, they will understand what you mean. So if you say the most clever or the cleverest, they will understand, right? So who is the cleverest in the meeting? Maybe in our live stream today, who is the cleverest? All of you, of course. You are the cleverest. Wonderful lesson. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. Thanks for your lesson. Well, thank you. Thank you guys for all of your wonderful comments. And thank you from Gulam from Pakistan. Thank you very much for your very kind comment. I appreciate it. The most world fastest animal is cheetah. So thank you so much for your question. So here, if we, well, I won't pull up the PPT again, but so I will just tell you. We want to make sure that the most and our adjective stay together. We don't want to split that up in our sentence. So here, instead of the most world fastest animal is cheetah, we would say the fastest animal in the world is a cheetah. Because our adjective is fast, one syllable, we just say the fastest. The fastest animal in the world is the cheetah. Or we could say the cheetah is the fastest animal in the world. But we need to keep our superlative together there. The fastest animal is the cheetah. Do I know British and American English? Yes, of course. British English often has different spellings, sometimes extra vowels like a U thrown in there, and a different accent. I cannot speak with a British accent, but I do know British English, yes. And some British slang as well. Let's see if do we have any more questions? Thank you guys very much for all of your comments and questions. And just so you guys know, this was left as a comment on our live stream as well. So this week is kind of a more lower level or beginner lesson, right? Comparative superlatives. Next week, my live stream will be an intermediate lesson, so a little bit harder. So next week, we're going to learn about the 4 conditionals in English using words like if, then, right? So we're going to talk about some conditionals next week. So if you enjoyed the live stream this week, but maybe you thought, little too easy, then be sure to tune in next week also for a lesson that's a little more difficult. Or even if you are, even if today was, a little challenging, still come next week because you'll definitely learn something from the lesson. So make sure to tune in next week. So you guys, that is it for the live stream today. Thank you everyone for joining. I love seeing your comments and interacting with you guys and answering your questions. So thanks again, guys. I hope that